Do we need to be worried about firefighters killing their girlfriends now? Because here is another story. A Missouri doctor found dead in firefighter fiance's home years after his previous lover dies by unaliving herself. A Missouri doctor died unexpectedly at her fiance's home earlier this month, just over 3 years after another woman was found dead in the same man's residence. Dr. Sarah Sweeney, 39, was found dead at 6:39 a.m. At a home in Westwood area in St. Louis on January 13th. There were no apparent signs of trauma on the body, but the Frontenac Police Department. While autopsy results are still pending, Sweeney's passing is being investigated as a sudden death. Corporal Tim Duda told the outlet the Frontenac Police Department did not immediately return to the post's requests for comment on the investigation. So here is Dr. Sweeney right here. Very pretty lady. She's the fiance of this dude right here, Robert Doss. I believe his name's Robert Doss. Now, I do have a little bit of audio from the 911 call. Obviously, you're innocent until proven guilty, but I'm just wondering, this guy must talk some seriously good game. Like, unless she's, But here's his other girlfriend that committed suicide. That one was earlier. So we will go back to Holland's family, however, disputed the suicide ruling on the grounds that she was right-handed, but the supposed shot herself was in the left temple. Her $20,000 engagement ring also appeared in the crime scene photos, but later disappeared. Holland's family subsequently sued Doss for wrongful death. In the months before Holland's death, Doss supposedly controlled Holland's finances and threatened multiple times to end the relationship. Holland's family also suspected him of domestic violence. My brothers in blue are not going to do anything to me. I've already taken care of that. You're the crazy girlfriend. A relative allegedly overheard Doss telling Holland at one point. Text messages obtained as part of the lawsuit also shed light on the couple's frequent fights, which once culminated in Doss writing, "I absolutely cannot BW sick with you. I don't know what, I'm not marrying you." I don't even know what the BW means. The wrongful death litigation is ongoing. An attorney for Holland's family did not immediately respond to the post request for comment. When Sweeney's family heard about Holland's death, they sent her the news stories the late doctor's mother told Fox News Digital. And again, very pretty lady right here. I will say, like, as a firefighter, suicides are my number 2 most hated calls that I go on. We actually recently just had a female suicide last shift, so 2 days ago. God rest the soul for that woman and also for that family, the husband. I couldn't imagine what he's going through right now. But I get firsthand experience on, as well as other firefighters and EMS personnel and law enforcement personnel that go on these calls. You see the family, how they react to these situations whenever they either witnessed the suicide or the unaliving of the person's self, or they walk in and they're the first person to see it. And none of them have been calm. There was only one run that I've ever been on when the family was calm, and that was for a cardiac arrest that we had. And it was the father of the daughter was in cardiac arrest, and a young girl too. She was actually around my age, was in cardiac arrest. This was about 2 years ago. And the father was just extremely calm. Like, it was weird. It was odd how calm he was. Once talking to him furthermore, come to find out he worked at a funeral home and worked with dead bodies all the time. So I asked him, I was like, "So what do you do for a living?" He's like, "Oh, I'm an esthetician. Me and my daughter both work at the funeral home. We both cremate bodies and do esthetician work." So I was like, "Oh, so you're around death a lot?" He's like, "Oh, that's my job." And so he is more used to that, which that kind of made more sense with that whole situation. But witnessing somebody go through a traumatic experience like that, almost every single person is panicking, and rightfully so, because their loved one has now passed. Their loved one has just committed a horrific act on themselves, which is terrifying in and of itself. But let me see if I'll grab the tape It's right
10
in
and
here, I believe. Here it is. So think about this. You come in and you find your loved one who unalived themselves, and you're calling 911. Imagine, put yourself in the shoes. How are you going to sound? How are you responding on the 911 call? Are you going to wait a long time? Are you going to call right away? Do you think that you would be emotionally charged during this phone call? Or do you think you'll be like Doss here?
911 location of your emergency.
A 911 call from a house in Creve Coeur in July 2020.
My fiance just shot herself.
Your fiance just shot herself?
Yes.
A nightmare for the family of Grace Holland.
Yeah, it's hard to live in a world without her.
Back in 2021, First Alert 4 Investigates exposed questions about Grace's death. She had died from a single gunshot wound to the head. Creve Coeur police had ruled her death a suicide, but Grace's family was and still is concerned by how the investigation was handled. In part, they say because Grace's fiance is a captain in a neighboring fire department.
I'm a captain with the fire district.
Now, Saturday, another death inside that same person's home, this time on Conway in Frontenac. Police telling First Alert 4 Investigates that they were called at around 6:45 in the morning and found a 39-year-old female deceased inside. They've classified it as a sudden death only. According to officials, there were no obvious signs of injury or struggle. The medical examiner's office says they will need toxicology results and other investigation to determine cause of death. Grace's family learned about it shortly afterwards, raising many more questions for them. An attorney for Grace Holland's family sending First Alert 4 a statement saying, quote, "We are saddened to learn of another death, especially of such a young person. We hope that the Frontenac police do what..."
When it comes to suicide, it doesn't matter if it's a young person or an old person. It's suicide. Suicide's horrible. So, handgun ownership associated with much higher suicide risk. I am here to tell you that as a person who has seen quite a few suicides, people will do it. They're going to find a way. And I've also heard of many other ways of people doing it. I don't condone it. I think it's a horrible thing to do. I think it's an extremely selfish thing to do. To think that you're making life better by unaliving yourself is a falsehood. And if you're in that mindset, just know that you are worth more than that. People around you love you, even if they say horrible things to you. There are people out there that do care for you, that do love you. And there are plenty of helplines out there. So I'm going to post one of those helplines down in the comments down below or the description down below. And if you guys need to talk to somebody, you could find me on social media, just Mortal Stumpo Podcast, and just send me a message. You need to talk to somebody. I'm always willing to talk. I enjoy it. So owning a handgun associated with a dramatically elevated risk of suicide, according to new Stanford research that followed 26 million California residents, California as well too, over a 12-year period. The higher suicide risk was driven by higher rates of suicide by firearm. Men who owned handguns were 8 times more likely than men who didn't to die of self-inflicted gunshot wounds. Women who owned handguns were 34 times more likely than women who didn't to kill themselves with a handgun. While prior studies have found higher rates of suicide among people who lived in homes with a gun, these studies have been relatively small in scale, and the risk estimates have varied. The Stanford study is the largest to date. And it's the first to track risks from the day of an owner's first handgun acquisition. Our findings confirm what virtually every study that has investigated this question over the last 30 years has concluded. Ready access to a gun is a major risk factor for suicide. So, often impulsive acts. Yeah, I can understand that. And there's been a lot of those calls that I've been on. I have been on for more unaliving calls. I have been on more of them that were hangings than I have suicide by or unaliving by gun or pew pew. And I believe that is just because of the people that were doing it. They just wanted a surefire way on their own. I don't know what their thought process was. I still think it's abhorrent. I still think it's a horrible thing to do. It's extremely sad because you try to think about that person's last moments, and the things that come into your mind when you're in that room where they're still there. is how alone they probably felt. And that's something that it's really hard to find the triggers of somebody who's thinking about unaliving themselves. Because oftentimes when you ask the friends and family, they're like, he seems so happy or she seems so happy. And then turns out they're really not. So there's a lot of signs to look for, but there's also signs that are not so obvious. So what I would say is somebody who's typically like the jokester, somebody who's trying to make everybody laugh. That's the person that you probably want to check in on. Because if he is trying to make other people laugh or she is trying to make other people laugh, maybe it's because in their own heart and their own body, there's a lot of sadness and that they want to make other people happy because they're not happy themselves. So check on your friends. Give your buddies a call. That would be a challenge for our listeners. These wonderful, beautiful, smart, intelligent, in shape, nice smelling listeners of mine. Also get you a cup of coffee. So who unalives themselves more? Men or women? Obviously, you guys can see the screen right here, and it is men 4 times higher than women. They make up 50% of the population, but nearly 80% of unalives. So what is this that we got to be looking forward to, guys? What does this say? It means that you need to talk to somebody. There is no fear, no judgment if you need to talk to somebody. That's it. Sometimes you just need someone to cry on their shoulder. A hug. Express what you're going through. Go out and try hiking. Go out and try putting yourself in a new situation where you're challenging yourself. Don't stay indoors. The last video that we did, we talked about mental illness, depression, and anxiety, and how it's related to on-screen time use and staying indoors. Turn this off, turn off my video, go outside, breathe some fresh air, put your toes in the grass. If there's snow on the ground or if it's cold, try to find something to do outside. Take an umbrella with you if it's raining and go outside and enjoy the weather. Because this has just become a huge issue. And I think that if we continue to let this happen, and I also found something really interesting. If we continue to let this happen, it's people that need to get help will not be able to get it. And I understand that there's some people you just can't talk them out of some things, but you have to still try. You have to try. So here's something that I found interesting. I've been trying to kind of find out why it always says non-Hispanic. So some groups have disproportionately high rates of suicide. Non-Hispanic, American Indian, Alaska Native. Non-Hispanic white. Non-Hispanic Native Hawaiian, other Pacific Islander. Non-Hispanic multiracial. Non-Hispanic black. Hispanic. Non-Hispanic Asian. Why does it say non-Hispanic? Like, and when we do our reporting, when we're getting patient information on our system for ESO, the 2 options that you get are non-Hispanic white and other. So like, I'm not fully understanding. It's like, what do we have against Hispanics? Like, I really don't know. I ain't wanting them Hispanics in here. I ain't putting them in. That's what I'm trying to understand. I'm not understanding it. Back to this story, and we're going to finish off here. The only thing that she had as a medical history was mast cell activation syndrome, which is MCAS, is a condition in which the patient experiences repeated episodes of the symptoms of anaphylaxis, allergic symptoms such as hives, swelling, low blood pressure, difficulty breathing, and severe diarrhea. High levels of mast cell mediators are released during those episodes. This is according to the American Academy of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology.org. So, let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think Captain Doss did this? Or do you think that he is just the victim of unfortunate circumstances? Let me know down in the comment section below, and I will see you in the next one.